Picture this. It's the mid-20th century, decades before video games, smartphones, or streaming video. Generations of kids and adults spent their Friday nights hunched over kitchen tables. They were building miniature worlds. And right at the center of that plastic revolution was one legendary, wonderfully eccentric, the Lindberg Line. But before it became a household name, it had a completely different identity. Let's wind the clock back to the beginning. Our story starts with a man named Paul W. Lindberg. In 1933, Lindberg was a designer and writer who began publishing plans for flying stick and tissue balsa wood airplanes in magazines like Popular Aviation. He sold balsa wood kits under his own name, but by the mid-1940s, a massive technological disruption was looming: molded plastic. Paul Lindberg didn't jump into the plastic game alone. Enter a businessman named Kenneth Olsen. In the early post-World War II era, Lindberg and Olsen joined forces. They created a brand name by combining the O from Olsen and the Lin from Lindberg. Under the O-Lin banner, they released some of the earliest mass-marketed injection molded plastic model kits in history. Their very first molded plastic airplane, a sleek post-war P-80 Shooting Star. O-Lin was aggressive. When a competitor named Varney decided to abandon model aircraft to focus entirely on model trains, O-Lin bought up Varney's tooling. They took those old designs, tossed out the clunky wooden parts, and replaced them with brand new, modern plastic. By the early 1950s, Olsen was out of the picture. Exit O-Line and enter the Lindberg Line. Paul Lindberg took total control, but he kept one crucial thing from the final days of O-Lin: a brilliant commercial artist named Ray Gaedke. I don't know if I pronounced his last name right. Sorry, Ray. See, O-Line boxes had been incredibly boring. Usually just 2 or 3 flat colors. Gaedke changed the game with vivid, exploding, action-packed box art that practically screamed at kids from the hobby shop shelves, "Buy me!" Throughout the 1950s and 60s, Lindberg went absolutely wild with variety. They didn't just make planes, they made battleships, aircraft carrier, hot rods, and classic cars. They loved a good gimmick too. In the late 50s, they rolled out Cellovision, kits featuring massive cellophane windows so you could stare directly at the raw plastic parts inside. In the late 1960s, they launched Mini-Lindy, tiny 1/64 scale plastic cars and trucks. But every great corporate empire has its identity crisis, and by the 1970s, the wheels started to wobble. Why did the hobby giant start failing? First, it was a fundamental clash of philosophy. While rivals like AMT and Monogram were pushing hard into hyper-accuracy, Lindberg was stuck in a classic mid-century mindset, treating models like toys rather than the high-fidelity scale replicas. As the kids who grew up in the 50s became adult modelers, they demanded accurate panel lines, detailed cockpits, and parts that actually fit together. Who would have thought? But Lindberg tooling was getting old. Because they spent decades gobbling up the leftover crude molds of defunct budget companies like Palmer and Pyro, a huge chunk of Lindberg's catalog became infamous for soft details and excessive plastic flash. To make matters worse, Lindberg fell victim to the ultimate type machine, the slot car craze. Lindberg poured a ton of capital into slot racing tracks and cars, but the fad burned hot and died fast. Lindberg took a massive financial hit. From that point on, they practically stopped investing in new tools, surviving nearly 20 years by reboxing old models. Instead of precision, they relied on their mad scientist phase, gimmicks and motorized kits. They put complicated, completely unassembled electric motors inside everything from hot rods to alien flying saucers with flashing lights. They also released the wildly popular Jolly Roger's Pirate series. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough. Because changing markets, particularly the rise of video games, caused a massive decline in the popularity of plastic models. With the company struggling, it entered a corporate game of hot potato. First up, a company called Craft House International. In 1989, at the age of 77, Lindberg sold his company to Craft House. Then they tried to market the brands as a craft and hobby staple, but they didn't really understand the hardcore modeler. Realizing they needed an intervention, Craft House made a genius move in the early 1990s. They hired an industry legend out of the retirement to run the division, George Toteff. the former engineering wizard behind giant rivals like AMT and MPC. Toteff knew that if Lindberg was going to survive into the 21st century, they needed to completely wash away the toy-like stigma. They needed a masterpiece to prove they could compete toe-to-toe with the highest quality brands on the market. Enter the legendary 1964 Color Me Gone Dodge 330 Supersport. The original real-world Color Me Gone was a monstrous moped drag racer that won the 1964 NHRA Top Stock Luminaire title.
Roger Lindemood and the Color Me Gone Dodge eliminate Dick Brannon.
Toteff pulled all his decades of experience into the tooling of the single 1/25th scale kit. He bypassed the cheap, simplified shortcuts of Lindberg's past and engineered it from the ground up to modern, hyper-precise standards. When modelers opened the box, they found a flawlessly proportioned body shell, 426 max wedge V8 engine, a fully realized racing suspension, and premium water slide decal. The hobby community was stunned. Reviewers couldn't believe the logo on the box. It fit like a dream and instantly became a gold standard for mid-60s factory drag cars. Toteff used the momentum to launch a whole wave of high-tier Lindberg releases. Throughout the 90s, it was a glorious Indian summer for the brand, but the revival didn't last forever. By the 2000s, Craft House fell apart and Lindberg was sold off to a company called J. Lloyd International. J. Lloyd had massive, sweeping ambitions. They announced giant, spectacular projects, a 1/32nd scale F-35 Lightning fighter jet, a massive 1/200 scale German Graf Zeppelin aircraft carrier. Hobbyists were ecstatic. The hype was real. And then, nothing. Aside from a few reissues, almost none of those massive promised kits ever actually made it into production. The company was drowning in old inventory, just couldn't compete with the highly advanced, laser-accurate tooling coming out of overseas competitors. The Lindberg line was officially stalled on the tracks. In 2006, another change was made. Lloyd actually purchased the rights to the molds from Hawk Model Company. Often you'll hear that it's just the other way around, where Lindberg was sold to Hawk, but that is not accurate. Which brings us to 2013. With the brand facing total extinction, a familiar saver stepped up to buy Lindberg once and for all. Round 2 LLC. By bringing Lindberg under the same roof as its old historical brother-in-arms, Hawk Models, as well as AMT and MPC, Round 2 did exactly what needed to be done. They stopped trying to force Lindberg to compete with modern high-end import armor or aircraft kits. Instead, they embraced the nostalgia. They cleaned up the classic molds, restored the iconic vintage box art, and proudly sell them today for exactly what they are, a beautiful, slightly quirky time capsule from a 1930s balsa wood magazine column to the pioneering plastic days of O-Lin to glowing pirate skeletons and hyper-detailed dragsters. Lindberg survived it all. They proved that as long as people have an urge to build things with their own two hands, the Lindberg line will keep on rolling.